just watching on the phone to make sure this is good. I think it is.
Are we live?
I think so. I'm just waiting to confirm. Can someone let me just go to the YouTube.
Yeah, we're live.
Yeah, okay. Sorry everybody.
Check.
Hi. Okay, welcome. How's everybody doing this week? Matt, I understand the earth that the earth is shaking underneath your feet. The earth itself trembles in anticipation.
This momentous occasion of this stream has shaken the very firmament of New York City.
Makes a lot of sense. Area. It's obvious, really, that this would occur. We should have predicted this. I think we need to start getting on betting markets too. There's a lot of bets we can make on things like natural disasters, right? You know, never waste a good disaster. Is that the House of Cards quote?
Absolutely.
100%.
Mitch, you were just telling us as well that you were anticipating a disaster on your own side for this episode. I think that's a great way to intro, actually.
I think, yeah, let's go for it. So, okay, welcome everybody to Art and Video Games. Here we are. I'm Mitch. We have Billy, Travis, and Matt going left to right on your screen. And I think there are no four people who are going to have more fun on the internet than we are going to have over the next, 90 to 120 minutes. Because we are covering is it fair to say, pioneering artworks of artist collective Jody. And so what I have up on my screen here is a Mac OS 9 emulator that we are going to use to run a bunch of these ethically sourced organic files that Billy was kind enough to retrieve directly from the artists, and we'll be playing them in as close to their original environments as we possibly can. And yeah, I think just starting off just talking about how we got these things going was really fun, because there's a story of media art there, which is like, yeah, I got all these files, Billy, and I was really excited about it. And you got me on that Telegram thread with Joan. She's like, yeah, this is emulator there. And I was like freaking out, like, oh my God. And are you guys like this? I always freak out when there's like a computer thing that I can't do, because it's not just that I'm frustrated about not being able to do it. It's that I am going to be discovered as a fraud. Like, oh, people are going to, I don't know anything about actually making art with computers. God, this is so embarrassing.
You're not a real computer guy, Mitch.
Yeah, I'm not. I was just like, if I couldn't run like this OS 9 emulator inside my M1 to like play these ROMs and connect it to this disk image, I basically my artist card was going to be revoked.
I just have to double down. If their code doesn't work, it's their fault, Mitch. They wrote shitty code.
Well, okay.
That emulator Sheepshaver, it's a piece of shit. Sheepshaver doesn't even work on my machine. Did you know that? Definitely not my fault that I couldn't figure out how to do it. I mean, congratulations, you figured it out. I could not figure out how to get Sheepshaver to run on my machine.
Obviously,
so you really did achieve something.
Well, it's important to, you should definitely bother the solo dev who makes this as a hobby on their free time and let them know
on the internet.
Yeah, that they are really dropping the ball on this.
They don't get paid, and yet they're still overpaid for the terrible job they're doing. It's awful.
Exactly. So I want to yak more later on about like the conservation aspect and what it means to be playing and presenting these old historic software works. But maybe before we do that, I'm just going to jump right into one of these artworks. And I thought, Billy, maybe you could give us an intro about like, who is Jody? What are they doing? And you can kind of riff for us, monologue for us as I open up. This is, what I read was sort of one of their earliest game artworks. And so maybe you can tell us like what is happening when this software comes out and what's happening in this moment and who these people are.
Yeah, I mean, actually, even before I do that, the reason I wanted you to talk about trying to get this installed is the thing that you said you were so worried about as well before was disrespecting the artist or not being able to like do service to it, or just like doing a bad job of presenting the work. I can't get it to run. I'm so sorry. And I think that this is really a part of a lot of technology-based art, that there's this precarity and preciousness to actually just getting the damn thing to work. That's always so awkward and weird, especially in galleries, transporting work, trying to reinstall an original work. They're just so precarious and cumbersome. And one of the things I love so much about kind of Jody's whole body of work is that it's all broken by default. And so you kind of can't do a disservice to it. They roll with the punches so well because the work itself sort of like embraces that feature of just like, oh yeah, technology's fucked, it sucks, it's broken all the time. Like, look at this fucked up broken thing that we somehow gave to you, and you're constantly questioning yourself, like, am I seeing the work correctly? And it really adds this nice element to it because you're never sure. You stumble upon it, and I think this was even more the case in the 90s when they started making work, because the internet was a small place. It spread organically. There wasn't a central search repository or something like that. So like it was a lot of just like stumbling upon weird pockets of the internet, and they were very much occupying this like part where you talk to people who were like around when it first came out, and they're like, I couldn't figure out if these were like Russian hackers or like real people, or like if this was just some sort of a glitch in the matrix. Like, what kind of fucked up hole did I just open up, and was that on purpose, or like, am I being hacked right now? Like, I can't tell if this is intentional, unintentional, art, like commerce, a glitch in whatever, and I think that they have played that card really well over their career, and it gives them this like immunity from being misunderstood. It gives them immunity from being misinstalled. Like, if it breaks, then that's even better. It's kind of an amazing position to have, especially in a world of technology where you're battling this like precarity of just like, oh no, you didn't install it right.
Hold on, sorry, I just have to change one thing. That was an amazing point, and then I opened up some software and I broke everything.
You crashed?
No, I didn't break anything. Things just aren't working exactly the way that I expected, but it's fine.
It's great. That's
but
great.
It's fine.
I mean, even like when we started the stream, I was like, wait a minute, is this a screenshot, or is this like, like, am I in the artwork already? Like, no, you're actually in an emulator of iOS 9, which is not itself an artwork, but the fact that you're experiencing all of this is sort of like part of the whole caboodle. Okay, now we have something going.
So this is, okay, I have to, it was a really good point, but now I have to, I have to fix my sound. There, game volume. Okay, here we go, because I can't hear you. I'm so sorry. Jody is already messing up our stream that I prepared for so hard. Okay, it was an awesome point you were making, and yeah, I jumped right into it. I was messaging you. I was so nervous. Preparing for this. Yeah, precisely because what you said. I was like, my worst case scenario was I was going to present one of these things that was. And it would be broken, or it wouldn't be running properly, and I'd be up here saying, this is an artwork, and I guess it's like a bunch of numbers, I guess, and like I'd be getting it totally wrong, and I would be embarrassed for years, right, to do that to another artist. But when you frame it like that, like as part of the artwork, like it is so important, and it is like. Sometimes when artists do that, it's like kind of a cop-out, like, oh, it wasn't supposed to work. Oh, it's like not supposed to look pretty. But when you're making artwork about technology, right, and you are trying to make artwork about new feelings that technology enables, this being lost in software, like it is like a new form of anxiety that is really native to this age only, and only to working with software. It's a really interesting thing to do. And it's interesting because particularly with some of the like primitive, like, I'm going to try to call it primitive without being derogatory, but they're using like we are not using like, NVIDIA 3080 graphics cards here that are capable of like, perfect ray tracing. We're not using latest motion capture technologies. These technologies have been used to simulate the types of expressions and emotional range that other media can do, right? We can't do that in this kind of pixely environment with these constraints. And so it behooves the media artist to find like the new types of anxieties that they could produce. Anyway, I was going to start by opening up a software that was more legible, but because you started on that riff, Billy, I wanted to open this one. This one I had flagged. You saw, as we were prepping this in Discord, I made a long list of all the software we got for them. And like some of them just had notes like, I'm actually not sure if this is working or not. And this is one of the ones I flagged. I don't know if this is working, but this is from Untitled game. And we'll go back to... We'll go back to SOD after this, but this is the example of exactly what you were talking about. I opened this up. I don't know if this is working. The shift button appears to do this. A nice thing, they don't totally throw you off the deep end. You do always get, at the very least, these options. There's a sort of navigability to this that makes sense. So I can see my controls. I can tell that, okay, there is supposed to be an attack button. There's supposed to be a jump swim button. So let's try this now that I've mapped the controls. Yeah, it's still not doing anything.
Perfect. So this is actually, and I also want to hold off a little bit more before I give like historical context, background on them, because I think that this experience is the most common experience of getting familiar with Jody's work. What goes hand in hand with this, of course, is that they're extremely prolific. So you'll come across some of their subdomains, their sort of like spiraling networks of artworks, and you start clicking through, and most of them just don't work, or you can't figure out how to make them work. So you just go to the next one, and there's always a next one, and then there's another one, and then there's another one, and they just sort of like continue sprawling in variations. So even with these game files, like you said, there was a folder with like a dozen of them or something like that. And so you might open up this one and be like, I can't really get much out of it. I'm sure that there's some way to do something else, but fuck it, I'll just go on to the next one. And you just throw them away. I mean, it's like, you know, you're able to treat the technology like trash in this way that it's already broken. There's tons of it. It's repeating itself. And you sort of surround yourself in this like kind of nest of like digital rat trash of just like bizarre things. And what you mentioned about the like high tech sort of thing is also interesting, because one way of interpreting what you're talking about puts me in the frame of mind of thinking about like crypto punks or like retro, you know what I mean? Like I'm able to still pull out some poetic beauty from this very lo-fi environment or something. And that does happen here. But I think that what's kind of amazing about their trajectory and their body work is they actually work fully across the spectrum of like high tech, low tech. And in a way, some of this low tech was actually very high tech at the time. You know, so they began making work in the 90s. They did a residency at, I think, San Jose Art School. And, you know, they were just graduates from their own art degrees in Belgium and the Netherlands, I think. They're European fine art artists, Joan Heemskerk and Dirk Paesmans. Traditional art school background. Also a really important factor, I think, is just like, I think they kind of grew up in a real punk era, or I guess post-punk. Technically, I'm not so much up on my like punk history. But, and I think it feels like a shallow or a low fidelity thing to call something punk, but like, because it's just been used so much and in so many different ways. But I sometimes think back and I'm like, oh yeah, they are just like so fucking punk. It's funny, like at so many different levels. And I think that was still like also the music background for them, the cultural background. But like net art was such a punk movement, you know. It was this like, fuck it, we don't need the art world, we don't need the gallery world, we don't need somebody to mediate, assist, publish us, disseminate us. Like, we've taken the means of production, we have the computers, you know. Like, this was such a big ethos of the time that, you know, the internet was really beginning, and their work was too. And that was high tech, you know. Like, you look at these websites, but that was fucking high tech. I mean, this isn't a website, but
Yeah, right. This is software. And one of the things we said, they are really prolific, and their work spans software art, game art, net art. And, you know, I mean, we should come back specifically to the net art stuff, you know, in a different episode, because there's so much that we just won't be able to do it all justice.
And sculpture, performance, I mean, it goes on and on. Yo, we got Cab in the chat. Charles Bruskowski.
Oh, nice.
Shout out. So, Should I keep going on the historical trajectory?
Yeah, please
What do you
keep
guys wanna
going.
do?
Tell
Should we
us.
just-
Tell us more about tell us more about like the net scene that's going on around the net art scene that's going on around the turn of the century. There was also, for context, there was also I just listened to Simon's podcast with the A16Z crypto people.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it was really good, and he actually does a nice little summary of that moment as well, in addition to a whole bunch of other things. And so yeah, riff for us a little bit more, and please pipe in Travis and Matt as I open up another piece of software that we'll see if it works.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some context for what I know or what I don't know. I mean, we talked about them being sort of seminal, and I often joke that they're page one of the net art textbook, and that was how I kind of first became familiar with their work. I studied film electronic art, and it was a real focus on new media. My advisor was Ed Halter, who's an amazing film programmer and historian, art critic, and they were really page one of our new media sort of study stuff. And so what I am talking about now, I've gathered from some of that education, but also from working with them for a little while, and I'm sure there's huge gaps because I just wasn't there. But my understanding of that sort of moment is I guess probably tales of that still existed when Travis, you and I met each other and started doing sort of internet stuff. The end of net .art movement and the beginning of the kind of surf club internet art movement just before post-internet art as the historical timeline. But I think of it as being delicious. When we were there was sort of that posting board where people would repost links to weird and cool things, and you would sort of find it by finding, oh, this thing has 6 of your friends reposted it, and then you'd open it and be a weird net art piece, either from the 90s or from that time. And I imagine he was just even more like that, except for more special to discover in the earlier 90s because there wasn't this central repository. I think it was much more about email lists. Rhizome was just starting there, and it was a listserv or something like that. Travis, do you want to give some of your net art history background here?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Delicious in relationship to it, because I'm pretty sure that was the first way that I saw SOD was through Delicious, and through I think through our friends and at Nasty Nets, who were all these artists that were making work about the internet and using the internet, but using Delicious to also kind of give a history of the things they like too. And yeah, so that's how I came across this. I actually think this is the first time I've ever seen this being played live, though. I think I've only seen screen recordings of it, which is so cool.
Yeah.
At least as someone who thinks a lot about dither patterns and the way black and white scales up and down, getting to see you interact with this is really cool right now. Mitch, tell us about the experience of playing it.
So it's really awesome, and it is so. I'm sorry. It's hard to play and talk and sound smart at the same time. I mean, so this is SOD, and I have much less knowledge of this than you guys do. I just know from the Wikipedia article that this is one of the Wikipedia article says this was the first one. It's the first one mentioned in the Wikipedia article. And it is apparently a Wolfenstein 3D mod, which is wild to me because this is on Mac OS 9. I didn't even know that Wolfenstein was on Mac. That's certainly not the platform that I would have expected it to be modded, but here we are. This was a really good one to start with because it was more legible. I knew that it worked, right? You come on in, and it's a pity that I can't get the sound going because I don't have system menu access from this software. In the last game we played, Untitled game, I had access to the system menu and I turned the volume down. And now that I'm in SOD, I can't do that. And so the first thing, but we see is though it's extending me an olive branch. That was the loading screen, and you saw those 2 bars. At least something was happening, and there is some banging music that comes with this. And I'm really sorry that I didn't have it turned on. But then, I see there's definitely a menu, 2 buttons. Darn, that's the first time I ever chose the button on the left, and now I don't know what's happening. Now I'm kind of lost. Oh, no, it brings me back here. Okay. All right, okay, good. Okay, no problem. You get a do-over. All right, so I can choose, at least there's a menu. I tend to choose, all right, Untitled Game 1. And just, the raw elements of a menu. This is very, very Jan Robert Lichte. I'm going to mispronounce his name. And then this is like, I know that I'm in a game. I can recognize the planes, the gridded planes, as being like Wolfenstein has taught me that these are things to do. Eventually I figure out that there are buttons. I don't know how that, no, wait, good. I do have a system menu. It's up here. Hold on. I can do a few things. Sorry, options. Sound is on. Right. Yes, I can configure my keyboard. Okay, so I can do some things here. Action is space. Shoot is really important. It doesn't even list the shoot. The shoot button, okay, it's not even telling me that there's a shoot button. I learned from trial and error that there is a shoot button. I've died. I have died now.
Yes.
There is, right, so I'm moving around, and I know that that's a bad guy. I've played this a few times, so I know that's a bad guy, and I have to press command to shoot him. Some of these doors I've learned I can press space and open. There are Wolfensteinish sounds playing right now, in the sense, like, it's not the classic, like, door opening Wolfenstein oomph. It seems original, like maybe their own recording of the oomph door open sound. The shooting sounds, I would recognize them if they were from the original Wolfenstein. They're not. They're something, like, similar, like almost they were custom made. And it's this game of sort of going around and trying to recognize the patterns of which of these planes you can walk through, which are barriers, which I can open by pressing the space bar. Eventually I figure out those things are fine. Some things are dogs. You hear a dog sound. Maybe those were bad guys. I'm not really sure. But really, I was just.
It looks like you got a different gun or something. Like you had this circle at the bottom, and then there was this kind of pixel grid that showed up, like a black and white pixel grid that showed up. And the only thing I can think of is from its location that maybe that was a different gun.
Yeah, I'm used to having circle gun. I've never had this.
Yeah.
So this is amazing. And you want to know what? I'm gonna, if you guys chat for 1 minute, I'm gonna quit out of this and reload it with sound, just because it's really worth doing. It's a really cool part of it.
The sound was, I was just watching like a YouTube video of it before we started, and the sound,
it's awesome.
It's really interesting, Mitch, that you point out that it seems like it's not the original sound, because that's kind of what I assumed, because they are called traditional video game sounding sounds, right? It sounds like clunking doors and screeching enemies and stuff. So I just assumed those were the original Wolfenstein sounds, and that they had left them in, which I do think there's a really cool contrast between the kind of representational nature of the sounds and the abstract nature of the visuals, where the sound is really giving you a lot. So I do think, it's worth trying to restart to get it working if you can.
Yeah.
I also really sympathize with you. Oh, sorry.
Oh, please.
Just like it's funny to see you play and to actually like try to figure out how to do something, or even like stress a little bit about doing like what can I do, just because I feel like I've never really tried to, or I don't even think of them as being things that you would even legitimately do, like put an effort to trying to play. They're just so unplayable. It's almost like you're willing to dabble just enough to sort of prove that they're unplayable or something like that, but you have to like pull your hands away really quickly. And so it's almost like a little heartbreaking to watch you do it. It like hurts, where I'm like, oh no, this is not like fun.
No,
and it brings up kind of it brings up a funny question about their work in general, or like, work which exists in some ways in theory. You know what I mean? Like this game was changed, and that's the work, to know that it's there and to sort of like be able to demonstrate that it's there, but actually like playing it is sort of unnecessary in a lot of ways. It does get activated in interesting ways. It's almost like a performance to be able to do it, to be able to demonstrate the breadth of the work, or to sort of just get the thinginess out of the work, rather than, I know it exists theoretically. There is this like very, emotional, visceral experience from playing it. And it makes me think of some of their other work, that it's really like, it's like a burden to enter the body into the work. And I'm just like, curious about your experience of it too. I mean, I feel like I kind of reject it outright. Although as somebody who's worked for them, I have put my body into their work on purpose because they're like, I was an actual performer. But like, would love to hear your all's thoughts about like, especially interactive art, the role of the viewer as a performer, and sort of the ickiness of like, you know, asking somebody to do that is this other sort of piece of it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm actually really curious in terms of their intentions. Like what I wonder is there more to be revealed by playing successfully, right? Like, are they challenging us to play successfully, get to the next level? Is the next level going to be different than the first? Is there something to be gained by engaging with it as a game that can be won? Or is it more intended in the way that you posit, that it's a kind of a absurd spectacle, right? That there is no sense of goal or anything to be gained in engaging with it that way. And I think that in itself is kind of an interesting kind of like going back to the bewildering, glitchy nature of the software, right? That ambiguity of like not knowing, like, am I supposed to like really seriously try to play this like Mitch kind of feels like he's doing, or am I just supposed to kind of let it wash over me? I think is pretty interesting.
So I will say that, Billy, I actually strongly disagree with your categorization of like how this art like should exist. And what you've described, you know, when you say, you know, playing it is the point, and the artifact exists to sort of, you know, only like verify, you know, that this idea like has been put out into the world. I think that's a thing that, as I've gotten older, like I've rejected, and as I've sort of moved further, and actually as I've gotten more into video games and a little bit further away from like strict conceptual art, you know, I've really taken the opinion that like, no, like you can experience it this, because I've learned that like even ideas, right, like even just bare absolute like stripped down to everything like ideas can have some sort of experiential impact. It's really weird, but like, you know, it's a big like Eve Klein thing that I've like really absorbed, that I've really taken with me. And I think with this, like, oh, there, that was a door. Oh, is that a bad guy?
That's a guy. Know it.
Like, even with this software, no, like I wouldn't be satisfied just knowing that it exists and watching the YouTube feed of it, because first of all, that phenomenon that I described earlier of experiencing the feeling of being lost and bewildered by this, that's a new feeling. That's like a new like internet era, computer era, video game era feeling, and it behooves an artist to take advantage of it. But also on an even simpler level, like one thing about this game is that like this is beautiful. Like, look at these compositions that are happening on my screen. Like, this is just, every single frame of this is a beautiful composition. And actually interacting with this helps me, you know, understand that this is not just like an aesthetic, this is not just a conceptual exercise. Like, there's a real aesthetic experience here. It's super beautiful. And I think that layer is important to it as well.
I think that resonates a lot. Yeah, no, go ahead, Billy.
Oh, that's me, but yeah, go for it, man. And then I'll talk.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, for me, my feeling about this is really, the pleasure of this is not conceptual for me. It's really aesthetic and sensory, right? Like, it is really, I just really like looking at it. Like Travis says, I also love these kind of dither patterns and swimming moire and stuff, and just like really seeing that. And I do think, to your point, Billy, your experience, and especially because we know Mitch, right? And we have like a idea about what he's like, watching Mitch play as opposed to maybe watching you play, right? We're having a different experience. Like, Mitch is kind of like, or he gave us this whole premise that he's like try-harding, right? To like try to like he's trying to do a good job, and then we see him struggling against this kind of abstract environment. There's something really beautiful in that.
I'm such a conceptual, like, electronic media art tryhard. It's true.
Well, there's like, okay, so they have some games, I think, right, with that kind of deal with tool assistedness, like where they play themselves a bit, or at least they have software that kind of functions that way. And in the case like this, and kind of Billy, hearing your kind of description of them being, you know, like let's just have all of this kind of rat's nest of parts, and we're gonna, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? And all these things. Like, instead of having a kind of human performer here, I wonder about like the kind of tool assisted, or like, you know, like recently, like, you know, Mario playing, like AI playing Mario, where it's just this thing that kind of goes through, hits every wall in every possible version to see. And it's almost like setting up these systems to play themselves so you could watch it. Like, I could almost imagine like a 16, like a multi-channel installation where you're looking at just all these different versions, finding these different kind of combinations of textures and things that can happen. Like that feels like maybe more of a like to be able to see it, to be able to see what's available here. And I think, and that comes from this place of just like wanting to see what else is there. Because I don't think about this in terms of them being game designers. I think about this in terms of them changing assets and seeing how that changed the game.
Yeah, and I think what I'm pointing at more of is that the thing that keeps me from getting too anxious around their work is knowing that there's kind of no wrong way to interact with it, or to play with it, or to accept it. You know, like I said, you know, you might not even be able to get it to run, and that's a perfectly valid way to like experience it. And so I think that just knowing that there's so many possible ways to explore all of it, that it's impossible to like get all of them done, that I sort of just throw my hands up pretty early. And I'm like, you know what? I just need like enough to demonstrate that I could kind of extrapolate what all the other possibles could be like. But just the idea of like playing it, it's overwhelming to me, because it sort of like takes too much of a chunk out of the possibility space, as if you're actually going to try to figure out all of the options. And then I'm just like fully overwhelmed, because it's just massive. You know, I mean, you're lost, you're bewildered, and then there's a million versions of it and you can't navigate, etc. But something you mentioned, Travis, about the like autoplay version of it makes me think of their GeoGoo Google Map websites, where they do, you know, beautifully orchestrated, massive like Google Map pins in these huge patterns, and then they have like, you know, the view scaling and going around, and that's like kind of like autoplay orchestration. And then the other version of that is like the professional player. You know, even like watching Mitch play, I was thinking like, oh, somebody who's like really good at this video game might be able to actually, you know, explore the levels or play the game with their eyes closed in a way that would like bring out a lot from it. And it makes me think they did these works for a while where they strapped skateboard wheels to the bottom of keyboards, like old chunky beige keyboards.
Love this.
And they had these either connected with long cables or Bluetooth, probably Bluetooth, but I can't quite remember. And this was attached to a computer that was like logged into a Twitter account. So every keystroke on these keyboards would go to a Twitter bot and just start tweeting. And then they had professional skaters skate around on these keyboard skateboards inside the gallery with like little ramps and half pipes, and just like beat the shit out of these keyboards as skateboards until they all fell apart. And then, you know, just be a feed of like garbled text coming on the internet. But like, you know, you really needed professionals to activate this artwork in the best possible way. And so, you know, I think they've kind of run the full gamut of those possibilities, where they let the user do it, they bring in a professional, or they have just a computer play the game for you in front of you to help with that.
I got a response to the GeoGoo thing too, where like I think about Rhizome's involvement in that, or like the restoring of GeoGoo, right? Like, didn't they do like a lot of work to kind of rebuild it so that you could still access it now?
I don't know much about that. Tell me about it.
I'm pretty sure it was Rhizome, or maybe it was like through Conifer, or like one of the sub-projects of Rhizome that did this, but they like kind of recreated it because it only worked on certain versions of Google Maps. And I'm thinking about it in a sense of like, you know, how would SOD feel if it was generous to the player, if it did kind of walk you into it and tell you how, versus this kind of like, yeah, here it is, go for it. And just kind of when you decide to stop, when you decide to stop giving that information, to stop kind of making it accessible right? And it's interesting that like then other people kind of might pick that up and work with it, or like yeah. I would really love to hear what their perspective on this too, about in terms of a viewer or a player or an interactor at like where the consideration happens. Okay, hello. What happened here, Mitch?
Oh,
What'd you do?
I
There's
fired
another
up.
one.
Like,
Money.
so once again, the experience of opening the software. I got this file in the folder. It said SOD. There were two files in it. One of which said SOD, and one of which said I forget what it said. Be something $sign. This is a different one. This looks a lot more like Wolfenstein. It's less abstract. And, I'm trying to figure out, some of these are doors as well. Trying to figure out what to do. They all have what looks like number signs, but then when I see DB, I wonder if these are actually hex codes, which feels like a recurring motif in their work. So I'm gonna call these hex pairs on the wall. These panels always rotate in to be perpendicular to my view angle. There seems to be some kind of mini map upstairs. And really, to be honest, keeping with this experience, or keeping with this theme of like, what does it mean to experience a JODI artwork? I've been messing around with the software to try to get this sound going for you guys. Because it's awesome. Like, it's really, really good. And so I tried to like reload the last software that I had that seemed to have access to system sound settings and like turn it back up. But I can't get the sound back. And I don't know whether it's related to the streaming setup or whatever. But there's awesome sound on this. So yeah, this is a version. I don't know. This is also SOD, or it's not SOD, or it's an alternate version of SOD. I'm not really sure. I haven't found any. I haven't found any bad guys in this. I think I'm just gonna keep this shtick going, where I'm like the guy trying to play it like really straight. Like I gotta find the end of this map. We're gonna speed run this. We're gonna go for 100% completion on stream. Okay, all right, we got $10 pledged from our users. That's great. Oh, a bad guy.
I also want to say that maybe I completely hallucinated the restoration of Geogoo. Now, because I can't find anything about it now. I just
working
remember
when I go to the website.
I remember there being something with it using an older version of Google Maps, and then there had to be people that kind of worked on it to make it interact with with what has become of modern browsers versus when they made this. But when I'm searching for it now, I can't find it. So maybe it wasn't Rhizome, maybe it was like another organization, or maybe this just didn't happen at all.
They also have like 10 versions of Geogoo. So there's like the geogoo.net, which is just like the Google Maps, but they also have like one that just always finds all of the roundabouts in every city and just like spins around the roundabouts. So there's a huge varieties in there that maybe one of those are what you're talking about, because at least the basic one is working now, or maybe it already got restored and it's still just on the domain that I expected it on. I mean, conserving their work is a huge question, and it's sort of like, honestly, one of these things that's come back to me from time to time and be like, I'm probably just going to spend my later years becoming Jody's like archivist or something. Like, I want to make sure that all of this stuff is like perfectly preserved. Or, I mean, I probably won't need to. I mean, their work is sort of so universally celebrated. I feel like it'll be a PhD student's like dream job to take on that role. But it would be really fun, I think, just because the archive's huge. You look like you discovered something.
No, what I discovered was something. Just playing the software, so it messed up my computer so bad. I couldn't hear anything the entire time. I was looking bewildered. So if you guys made any points or addressed me at all, I missed it. There's going to be a lot of that. And I don't think this is all a result of the software, but it is a result of like me running software and pushing buttons that I shouldn't be pushing. I'm going to use this, though, as an opportunity for the world's awkwardest segue into the next piece. And I'm going to start playing some pieces from Untitled game, which, from what I understand, came chronologically after this, after SOD. And we'll take a look and see some of the other ways that this software bewilders me and messes me up, and in my opinion, also produces these beautiful aesthetic experiences. So let's open up Untitled game. I made some notes on which ones were more awesome and not. Oh yeah, and then also with these, I deliberately, there were like, I think 9, here we go, you can see there's like 9 different pieces of software, maybe more than that. There's 11 pieces of software here in the Untitled game package, and I like played 8 of them, and I deliberately left like 3 of them like unplayed so I could be playing them for the first time with you guys. But here's one that I have already played. Okay, so this is Untitled game. The application was E1M1 map. And it looks like this is Quake. It looks like we're doing Quake.
Yeah, it looks like Quake to me. We've definitely moved into true 3D world.
Yeah, which makes it a lot harder. Like, so I don't, this, as the camera rotates like this, that's not me. I can move forward, all right, and like I can affect my turning, but then the camera seems to constantly be barreling, like in a way that's connected to what I do, but not in a way that I would ever say I have control over this. And in this 3D Quake world, it means that very quickly I like lose track of which way is up. And so I actually don't know which way I'm turning. Like right now, I'm not sure. I might be looking, because Quake also has, there's up and down look commands. I'm going to guess, okay, so this must be looking straight ahead. I guess it is really dumb that I'm like trying to actually like play this and navigate this world. But I think it's better to try.
I mean, I'm all for like trying to get a rise out of the game, you know,
Yeah.
get as much mileage as you can. If beating the levels will do that for you, then so be it.
Well, no, it's just figuring out like what's going, look, man, I just want to know what's happening, man.
Maybe this is a good time to jump back to, so I think Jody's most famous piece, or like the piece that people usually begin talking about, is it's a website. I think it's www.jodi.org. Might even still be live under that domain.
Yeah, it is. I checked it out.
Yeah. So if you go there, it's green text. It looks like ASCII text on a black background, underlined. You can click it, and it takes you into some weird place afterwards. But the site with the green text, first off, when I first saw it, I was like, I didn't know that www could be longer than 3 W's. Like, I don't think I understood what subdomains were at the time. So that sort of like, I think is already a great sort of like put you off kilter when you visit this website. But the story behind this site is that if you open up the source code, you'll see like a perfectly aligned ASCII drawing of a nuclear bomb blueprint. And when you look at it in the normal website, because it's not doing the like right code indentation system to display it, it's all grouped up and garbled. And the story was that they were trying to make a website that like actually had the source code of, or like the blueprint of a nuclear bomb. So if you open up your, I think it's Command Option I or Command Option U to be able to see the source code.
All right.
Command Option U rather than I.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Nice. And so the story goes, they're like out in San Jose at the doing a residency at the art school there, the computer school there as artists, and they're like being taught what websites are and like HTML, and so they're like, cool, we're gonna like put this edgy nuclear bomb blueprint, and then they just like they forget to close the caret that would have like made the text show up correctly on the website. And so they tried to load it, and it just looked totally fucked up. And they're like, oh, fuck. They're like, you know what? This is all right. Let's just use it. And so they went with it. And, it became this, conceptual artwork all of a sudden, because you have to open up the developer console. You have to look at the source code to be able to see the artwork. And all you're presented with in the actual experience is a broken version of software, which is our experience so often while dealing with software. It's just like, I don't know if it's working right. It looks fucked up. Can someone help me? And just like, from their first large artwork together as a collective, it's performing that all the way until, the game that you're playing right now. You're like, I don't know if it's even broken in the correct way right now. I don't know what's broken about it. I'm lost here. Luckily, you have something to say, Mitch.
Oh, no. I was guys, I'm just shambled. My earbuds falling out because I'm gesticulating too hard.
Jody just wrecks Mitch.
I said that, I said nobody's going to have more fun on the internet than us today. But yeah, let's go through. I wasn't sure if we were going to cover this today, but I'm glad we are. But what is this now? If I actually click on the text, now I'm here.
I have no idea. I mean, it goes further in different directions.
I was clicking around and started downloading files onto my computer, which was pretty alarming. So like SPC files, I was like, whoa.
I feel like it's like constantly an extra. I was like, is this okay? Actually,
yeah, exactly.
Like, am I okay?
Exactly. Am I getting fucking owned here?
Yeah. Oh man.
I mean, that's good. That's good though, because I was like a little uncomfortable, I'm like, wait a minute, what did you just download it onto my computer? Like, do I want this? Like, it was like a real little emotional moment for me there.
Perfect.
Now I'm looking at the source code on all their pages.
Yeah, me too. and like, it's funny, like the rest of it is all like very, very clean. Like, it's really clean, well formatted, super legible, no surprises.
We've got T-Wit in here. Net art legend as well, coming around this period. I'm sure we could get some stories from him here. But yeah, I feel like there's such a large story on this sort of like era of projects coming out, artists working, and I feel like, as my understanding, Jody's the sort of like weird robot background that's sort of like a hum of like, is this human made, or is there some sort of an AI that was uploaded that's broken and run loose or something like that? And yeah, I mean, maybe I'm doing the work a disservice by never trying to fully explore every link or something, but I get so overwhelmed so quickly where I'm just like, oh, like I like this work without having to click all of these things. Like, that's what I like about it, is knowing that they're there. And like you were talking about, is there something on the next level? Did they make a cool thing? Did they actually put time and work and to having something deeper later on? I will almost guarantee they did, and like, I think that not knowing, suspecting, and being unable to truly confirm is my favorite part of their artwork and the experience of their artwork.
I do think that that's a really interesting thing to play with, and kind of medium specific in this way, this like feeling of depth, right? Like this feeling that there is something beneath the surface there. Like, can we theoretically you could verify that it's there. You could exhaustively click every pixel, and dig through every possible link and kind of map it out. Or you could engage the way that you're saying, or be like, whoa, okay, I see there's some whole underground system to this that I'm not going to look into, but I'm kind of enjoying that it seems to be there. I do think that that's an interesting thing that you don't necessarily get in other, basically in any other form of art, right? Where it's like, I don't know, if it's a sculpture or something, maybe there's something like inside it that's hidden, but it's like, it's hard to do in anything that doesn't demand some amount of interactivity, right? So the user is choosing how deep to go.
I love that you just had the Wikipedia up there. Mitch was reminded of them like receiving a Webby Award. Also that Dirk studied with Namjoon Paik. Mm-hmm. But the response they gave to receiving the Webby Award, will you go back to that really quick?
Oh yeah, sure.
I don't want to misquote.
Yeah, it was funny. Their 5-word answer.
After receiving the Webby Award for net art, acceptance speech.
Scroll down,
it's not on the screen.
Oh, here. Yeah.
The commercial sons of bitches. Yeah, they really are just so
That's
punk.
super punk. That's super punk. Nothing but, getting the award and then immediately criticizing the award.
Yeah.
That's really great.
I'm honestly surprised that the Webby. It's funny because I just was looking at the Uriah Harvey show again at the Museum of the Moving Image. They gave them an award as well, and they did their like kissing performance on stage.
Yeah.
So the fact that the Webby Awards was like giving out awards to Uriah Harvey and Jody, and it honestly speaks pretty highly of them. I'm very surprised that was happening at all.
Yeah, that was awesome, and we'll talk about that for a second. So now you've been to the Uriah Harvey exhibition at the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens a couple of times now, because you and I were both there together on the opening night, and it really was one of the highlights of the exhibition. We're going on a little bit of a tangent here, but hey, we're talking about net art legends here, and we even got some in the comments, but Uriah, one of the highlights of the exhibition was showing them at the Webby Awards. Uriah and Michael, and they win the award, and instead of giving a speech, they just made out on stage for like 3 minutes, and
it was uncomfortably long, like too long. It was not just like it's just like you're like, oh wow, okay, it's still going. Yeah. It's amazing.
Everybody go see that exhibition at the Museum of the Moving Image, by the way.
Were people just clapping the whole time?
Oh yeah,
people were like laughing and applauding and stuff, and then you could see the presenter is like, okay, like wrap it up, guys. And
this was
going longer and longer.
This was a guy at the Webby Awards in the late '90s, early aughts, like actually kissing a girl, like for sure, confirmed. It was
radical.
Like, really,
these
really
nerds fuck.
Yeah. But like, you're right. It is cool that the Webbies gave awards to Jody and Uriah Harvey. That is kind of like, maybe not like, greedy commercial bastards or whatever, to the extent that not as bad as it was gonna get. I got bad news for you, circa 2002, Jody.
I actually wonder because
No, go ahead. I was going to say, it just shows how small the internet was, right? Like people doing interesting work. It's like almost kind of reminds me of the way that like a few years ago, people were just talking about like NFTs as a whole category, right? Like anything that was an NFT could be like talked about as a single. It's almost, they were like websites, we're like talking about all the websites. We're going to pick the best ones and give them an award.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up is blockchain is compared to the early web in so many ways and so many times, in like some ways, I think maybe more appropriately than others, but just this idea of like the pool of participants being relatively small, and then like every, cycle, they get a little bit bigger or something like that. And like how things are historicized, what's remembered, what's looked back. It's a really bizarre thing, and I'd be curious, to hear more from somebody who's lived through both. I guess probably Tim or even Joan would have some opinions about that, like how similar that aspect of it or that dimension. I have the feeling that like from the digital art narrative, it was like a really big deal for the people who were involved, and like And also institutions took notice. The same way I'd say some institutions are taking notice to NFTs for more or less lasting ways. Whitney had this digital art port, the NetArt database and preservation system that they set up in like the 90s. Museums were like, cool, we're gonna have like systems for it, and like so many of them just fell apart or stopped being maintained or just never had follow through. I was talking. They even had some really cool stuff. I was talking to Cass Fino Radden about this a little while ago, and they were saying that Whitney had like a digital collector, almost like social network, where you could upload your versions of the files so that there would be multiple redundant stored versions of the digital files, and it would like notify you of like other members who had the same files as you, so you could like connect with other digital art collectors who owned the same artwork as you. Like how cool is that from like a 90s digital art perspective? We're now like reproducing all of that with NFTs and like geeking out and making discords like, you have the same file as me, wow, it's so cool. Although it's also a little different because we don't want exactly the same file. We want a different file, but the same smart contract origin.
I just want to, I just want to point out, just purely aesthetically, of all of the files I opened, this is really one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite iterations of this Untitled game software. I think it's really beautiful that it's just a horizon line and a vanishing point, and I can kind of move off of the like what is the path. But I always I don't want to, because if I move off it, I'll be lost and I won't know how to get back. And this horizon line seems to be not the actual horizon, but some kind of crosshair that'll move if I press the jump or attack button. I just think aesthetically, I just think this is a really beautiful artwork. I'm gonna open up another one. That was
do we expect that this is also Quake based, right? Is it safe to assume that this bundle or this kind of collection is all modded Quake versions?
This is all the SODs or all the Untitles?
All the SODs. There were two files in SOD that both seem to be Wolfenstein. Let's open up one more of these Untitled games and see if it's also Quake.
I think all the Untitles are supposed to be Quake, but yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows until we open it?
Okay, you want to open a new one that I've never opened before?
Waiting for a yes?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Too bad.
We do.
All right. Whether you want to or not, that's not a thing you could click on. Okay, so there you go. That happened. That one that I was saving for you guys turns out
Your mouse hasn't moved in a little while.
I think you might be frozen or something.
Oh, I get it. Don't worry, it'll come back. It'll come back. Oh yeah, it'll come back. Let me go.
Part of the
experience.
Always do.
A part of the experience. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I tried to open up this one called Input. I'd been waiting for you guys, but turns out that's not a game file. That's just a data file. That's not a thing we can play. What's another thing that I was saving for you guys that I never opened?
Are those icons custom? I haven't used OS 9 in a really long time. I don't remember. Are those custom icons, or is that a generic kind of icon you might get?
No. Those are custom.
All right, here we go. Gonna open this for the first time. Is it gonna work?
Mouse icons or the icons on the applications?
The application icons.
Yeah, those are custom.
Whoa! Oh, can you hear sound?
Hello.
Yeah,
we got it for a little bit.
Oh, look at this!
Yeah, I hear some kind of music-y kind of sounds.
Oh, all right. This is a my computer thing. If I play the game over in this window, then you guys get to hear the sounds. That's great. What the heck? This is awesome.
You can just hang out here for a while.
Yeah.
So going forward, here I am going forward. Oh, it's just oh my gosh, this is just is this just one big cube room with moire patterns?
I think I read about this actually. This is it's a Quake level where you're trapped inside a cube, and this is actually a rendering error. It's they're using they put these patterns on, and these patterns are not supposed to in Quake be generating these kind of insane moire patterns, but they're kind of exploiting that to do this. It's beautiful.
I don't see any errors here.
This is and look,
Mitch,
when I press...
there's a word zoom on. Can you zoom out a little bit in the?
Oh yeah. We're seeing a quarter of the screen. Although that's kind of good too.
No. It's great. There's just so many different technologies not working together. But here we go. Okay, so now you got that. Oh, look. And we got the sound going on. By the time the stream is over, we'll be really good at streaming Jody artworks.
You're going to be a glitched out mess by the time the stream's over.
Oh, I'm sure my computer, I'm sure, got so much computer hepatitis here. just like downloading all these emulators. And for a while, I was trying to find like the BIOS, like BIOSes for Intellivision emulators to do Set Willie, which we'll get to.
What is it? What is this one called?
This is Untitled Game.
This one's so nice. I want this like full screen my life though. Like seeing it in a very small window. I just want it much bigger around me.
Was this like a separate like? But I thought the other one was Untitled Game 2. Like, is this all in the same like subdirectory? Like, what was?
It's so messed up. And so like yeah, right. I got a folder. It says Untitled Game. You open the folder and there are all these executable files. Except that I don't know right away if they're executable files because like I haven't looked at a Mac OS 9 like, you know, file extensions in 20 years and so there's a whole bunch of files and you wonder, okay, is there one like master file that loads all these as levels? Like, am I going to click the wrong thing? It was extremely stressful. Okay. But no, they're just like Untitled Game is a collection of 11-ish pieces of software. That's my understanding. Big caveat, I might be wrong about that. Maybe one of these is Untitled Game, and the rest of these are studies for Untitled Game. I don't really know.
This is amazing. This is
beautiful. And then look at this. If I want to press spacebar, like, I love this. I'm like
Monsters and Secrets.
I solved like 0 monsters, 0 secrets, and like and oh my and the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking, guys. I want to say, something else a little bit coming back to this idea of, the software that's intentionally difficult, the thing that is intentionally glitched and whatever, because I think that, this move right... What the fuck? I found 2 monsters just while I was talking to you.
You're winning, Mitch. You're winning.
I know that I am, and I never doubted that I would. But yeah, like this experience of creating like the deliberately frustrating piece of software, it's become like, I think, there's a way, this was done, very, very early and has a sort of different place in history and in our understanding because of that. But I think that like the difficult piece of software became like a little bit of a trope, a little bit of a genre. But I do really think that I think the aesthetics are super important. Like, I think it's important that artwork that challenges and frustrates you like that has to, I don't want to say has to. No art has to do anything. But it's really good when it gives you something else, right? Even an aesthetic experience, some sort of sensory experience to contrast against, to make sure it's not just something that's going to hit you over the head with a 2x4 over and over again. You need that second note.
There's like a German phrase to talk about food that maybe it's in English too. The eyes have to eat too.
Yeah.
Can't just fill your belly.
So what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to do another Untitled Game? Do you want to move over to Set Willie, which is really different and a lot more frustrating? Or they also some of the things that we also got from Joan, as you know, Billy, were some of the video pieces they did, which are very kind of evocative of they're very similar to some of the Corey Archangel pieces that we were looking at a couple months ago, just in terms of being video capture pieces and playing with that. Where do you want to go from here?
I could go in any of them. I played Set Willie at home just as me trying to get things to work. And so personally, I've seen that, but for the stream and for you all, would love to. Travis, you're also a big Set Willie fan. Maybe we should just go straight into the good stuff there.
I'm a fan of the art in it. I played it for the first time last night.
Well, I was gonna say, I think we all missed the boat on playing that when it came out. That was it was like before, was it a Commodore? No, it was an XZ. It was like a personal computer operating system that was even before Commodore or in parallel to Commodore 64.
Was it ZX Spectrum?
Yeah, ZX Spectrum. I don't know much about that computer.
I know we're leaving Untitled behind, but I just want to say that seeing that as the last one really makes me want to like go and like explore the rest now to know if there's like another like I don't know. I feel like I just saw new work right then, you know. So
yeah, it was
when it comes to like owning digital art or like showing digital art, I feel like I'm often not that interested in having like digital videos or digital images. But like having a live simulation running in some sort of a way is really enticing to me.
Yeah.
The idea of like having that running with some sort of a mechanism that just forces you to walk around randomly, like I would covet that as like an object in my life.
Let's make it. Whoa!
It's okay. Everything's gonna be fine. It's gonna be.
Wow.
It's gonna be fine, guys.
Wow.
Getting to see how the sausage is made.
Oh gosh. All right.
But yeah, ZX Spectrum was like a computer that was mainly popular. It was a little bit like Commodore-like. It was mainly popular in England. It didn't really make it to the States the same way, but it has a lot of dedicated followers there. And it's got a kind of distinctive, like kind of DOS-like color palette that a lot of people have used to make art and game stuff with. Kind of like,
There we go. That's the nerd shit I wanted to hear.
yeah.
And so I'm going to open this up. I'm going to open up Jet Set Willie, which I understand this is an artwork, comes chronologically after SOD and Untitled game, which it feels counterintuitive because it's using this much earlier and much more primitive, game console as its foundation or as its substrate or whatever. When you open this up, you can't see my Finder window, but so we got Jet Set Willie from Jody. It's a collection, a suite of 6 files, all right, that will all run in this ZX Spectrum emulator, and which they're all Jet Set Willie. And so I'm gonna just jump into one of them at random. Oh, you can hear this, right?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, I've never heard anything from your screen, but I don't know if the others can.
Oh, yeah. Let me turn on the other audio.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah, it might be on YouTube if it's not on Discord.
Oh, okay. And that crashed. That crashed. Let's try this again.
I just listened on YouTube, and you could hear it on YouTube.
It is actually getting to YouTube. So the audience can hear it, but we can't.
I gotta figure out how to make that not happen because it's a lot of sound. It's a lot of sound. All right, let's give it a shot. If we get a noisy one, okay. So apparently this emulator needs access to like my entire Google Drive folder. I'm sure that's fine. I'm sure that's gonna work out just great, right? Let's just say that's okay. All right. A lot of noise.
Jody root access.
Okay, so here we are.
Yeah, that's where we start.
Okay, here we are. I'm this gray square.
One jumping?
Yeah, I forget. There's a way to jump.
You can go to the left.
Fuck, I died. What the fuck?
Wait, no, what? Hold on. How did you die there?
I don't know. Or maybe the software just crashed. Maybe it just crashed.
I think it might have been a crash.
Yeah. Okay, let's try a different one. I think I recall. Okay. A lot of sound here. This card is part of. Oh, look. It turns out that white dot was me the whole time.
Yeah, so these colors, this is like the kind of character.
Yeah. Okay.
I love. It's like I think it's 8 colors or maybe 16 colors. It's like very bold.
I don't want to stay on these too long because the sound is gonna really. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And I think I can set my
Room editor.
Air, water, earth, ramp, convey item. Air, water, earth, ramp, convey item.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
There's a toilet in the right. I know that. Like basically right where you are now. In the original, there's a toilet right there.
Okay.
But this says room editor, so like you can change this one. What happens when you like type like WER? Does it like, or is that just letting you know? Kind of like ask you like.
If you go left.
Pushing. Oh, I don't know. I pushed something. Oh no, that's just the pause button. The pause button makes it do this.
If you go left with like A.
Okay, so you know,
There you go.
it's a really great suggestion, Billy. I'm just not exactly sure which button makes me go left.
It's working. You're doing it.
You're doing it.
Okay,
You're doing it.
To the door.
Go
Okay,
left
got to
without
the door.
jumping. There was.
Keep going. You have to go left
Keep going.
and jump to get up on that www platform.
Okay.
You can also just go left through the door at the bottom, on the bottom left too.
Yeah, that's probably smarter. It looks like there's an enemy upstairs.
So once again, all very contingent on knowing which way is left, on knowing what button makes you go left, and
Oh yeah. Mm.
okay, one of those buttons makes all that's the colorful. That's the colorfulness button. Eventually, I figured.
Colorama.
Air, water, earth, ramp, combat item.
I can't. Let's open up one. Let's open up one more, and then how did I ever? There was a way that I got this working.
Mitch, do you need a break? This seems like a lot going on right now.
A lot of pressure on Mitch right now.
A lot of pressure.
Maybe we
on
should
you.
have switched to video first. Have a little autoplay.
No, it's okay.
Give you a minute to chill. That's a lot.
It is pretty fun. Okay. This one is extremely frustrating.
I also just don't have a frame of reference for like, is this what the original looked like? Is this something that they made? Is this a mod?
These sprites
It looks
in
really
the original
nice.
Jet Set Willie.
No, I played it on Internet Archive last night, and it's like a legible game. Like that's the character, but like you can kind of move around. Like it's not this blocky. Like this has like the kind of an Atari look to it, where like the ZX Spectrum and like the games on there's like a little bit more detail going on there.
Oh, the colors look so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving the colorama, the kind of color cycle.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it on colorama mode for a little bit because it also prevents the noise, which is I think also much louder in my earbuds than it is for our audience. But yeah, okay. So can you give me some background, Jet Set? This was an actual game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Internet Archive has like a very quick, like you can get it up and running and using arrows. And it's the thing that the way I found it was through modding communities because they have this, and I think you were actually in it, like this kind of map editor that you can do, which are basically like making digital paintings. And yeah, so if you go to like play Jet Set Willie, but yeah, I found these huge like digital images which were maps of all of the levels in Jet Set Willie and Jet Set Willie Goes to Paris just these the whole level board is kind of one big image, but you see it in these type as rooms. But yeah, on Internet Archive, there's like quite a few. Oh yeah, like I think it was one of those games that modding was very much a part of. Like that was like there was a lot of kind of level editing that was happening. So
that's so interesting and really surprising, considering like obscure platform and you know what era we would have been in when this was happening.
Yeah, like I was just trying to find the link to the playable version on Internet Archive, but like right away underneath it, you see like from 1984 the Jet Set Willie editor, and all these different versions of it that like so people could make their own. Yeah, and actually, there's quite a few fan-made versions of it from then, I think.
I wonder if this is just sort of a hat tip to the honored tradition of making Jet Set Willie mods then, and that's why it was so important to include, even though chronologically they were moving in a more advanced technical direction.
Well, maybe that's a great segue to the next piece that we have some footage from, which would be nice. It also, I'll get a break from playing some stuff, and we'll run some footage of some pieces that came after SOD, after Untitled Game and after Set Willie, and that are specifically about modding. And we have a clip of a piece they did called Max Payne Cheats Only. And Billy, do you know much about like the history or the context of this piece?
Honestly, no. It was one of the first pieces I think I read about or saw and just sort of like loved, because it was just really embracing like a fucked up. You can't tell if it's a cheat code or if it's glitch or like what happened to it, and then auto playing it, and you can't tell if it's a bot playing it or if the people. It's one of these sort of like I can't quite figure out. I think that was like a real qualifier for me when I first started looking at video art, was like if I couldn't figure out what the person who made it was doing, that was like a real win, because so much of it is like, oh, there's a really sick editing technique, and they, if I could figure out what that editing technique was, I didn't care about the artwork anymore. Yeah, and with all of Jody's works, I was just sort of like, I don't know what's happening, and I'm really into it. I think it was around the time that I realized that there was like Nintendo 64 emulators too. Travis, we had talked about last time that I those N64 controllers that had USB adapters and was downloaded a ROM with every N64 game, and so was just so obsessed with this aesthetic and realizing that they had already been here, done that, pushed it to the like most extreme, and I was looking at it already 10 or 15 years after that, was really just, they always felt ahead of the curve in that way. And maybe that's a good reference to like sort of the breadth of the technology they've worked with. Speaking of this, Amiga looking platform, they also told me that they were invited to published like a work on live television in like Belgium, when there used to be this kind of like early internet television kind of thing where you could use your remote control to interact with like a really Amiga looking screen to like check the weather and like check the sports, like way before the internet existed.
Oh wait, this is like you're talking about this initiative would have happened back in the 80s? Like, was this a Teledom thing?
It was a Teledom thing, but I think it was still running. Like it was like the last one that was still on air, and so it was much later than the 80s that they did it, but the technology is from that era. Yeah, I'd never even heard of this technology.
So I only know something about it. Yeah, a little bit, because the Artist Run Center in Toronto, where I basically started learning all of this, where I basically started learning media art, and where I later worked as education coordinator, started its life as a resource for artists. Like, it was founded in 1983 by a bunch of artists who wanted to pool their money together to get a Teledon. And these were like nationalized systems. Different countries had different proto-internet like systems they were running. They were competing to see who would dominate and become the internet. And Canada's, which maybe was a partnership with the UK, was called Teledon. Different ones were called Videotex, whatever, Telex. And anyway, yeah, they were things. And anyway, this Artist Run Center here in Toronto, they just had their like 40th anniversary exhibition. And it was this massive, like, amazing retrospective of artists here in Toronto who were using that as a medium, creating some pretty interesting artworks. And yeah, they finally, like, so obviously it didn't work out, but these were terminals you would connect to your TV. They were massively expensive. They would cost like $10,000, like, or something like that, like back when $10,000 was even more money than it is today. Really didn't work out. And you could, you would get news and weather on them, but you could also, type and interact with them. They were really proto-internets, and it was like a minor news story when they finally like formally ended the service, whenever that was. Like you mentioned, Jody was invited to still, be one of the only people still using this technology. It was cool.
Super cool. And then, you've got the spectrum of low-bit video games to like Max Payne, PS5, just like whatever the latest, newest platform is, and just like fucking up a game as thoroughly as possible there. Then like, NetArt index.html files with like the nuclear bomb stuff, and then at the far other end of the spectrum, like latest with Google Maps and interactive and 3D sorts of things. Physical, working with iPhone, making interactive augmented reality apps. But like even Joan recently did a residency at CERN, as the artist there, where they're doing, particle colliding. And before that, she did a residency at a quantum computer place. So she made all these works, interacting with quantum computers or concepts of quantum computing. And like, I love that they really get their fingers in like all of these extremely fun honeypots, just enough to like break them, you know, like enough prowess in any technology just to like find the sweet spot where you can just apply the pressure and it like breaks in such a satisfying way. And some of them are just about repetition. So even like you could look at YouTube, you know, they had these works for a while which were all about just like people breaking technology, like screwing into TV screens or just like smashing printers and stuff like that. And like that's one version of breaking the technology. But what blew my mind was that like they broke the technology by just collecting all of those files. So I was like helping put together an archive of that at one point, and there was just like hundreds of gigs of videos that they had downloaded from YouTube, and like that was like breaking the technology in my mind, where it's just like, oh no, like you can't deal with video like this. You know, you've broken the concept of video while the video itself is sort of these technologies getting broken. Or they also, in the inversion of that, you know, got obsessed with like uploading videos of somebody pressing their thumb across the camera. And so it's sort of like peachy reddish light coming through videos, and they were just uploading thousands and thousands of these videos of just like, you know, a thumb covering the camera screen. It's just sort of like, oh my God, like you've broken infrastructure at this point. You've broken social media. You've broken like a video platform from the inside in these like extremely bizarre ways. So I love that they really have touched technology at so many different high and low levels. And this video being, again, you know, a pretty, at least at the time, highest level of video game technology.
Yeah. And so this is really interesting to me. It's like, it seems like a more minimalist intervention than, you know, than the games that we played before. But again, I don't really know. Like I don't really know if this was more or less labor intensive, or frankly, if it even matters how labor intensive it is. I mean, it almost certainly doesn't, but let's look at another one.
I feel like one thing that's relevant to bring up, looking at that Max Payne thing, is that there's Skibidi Toilet. Skibidi Toilet is like a kind of contemporary, super viral machinima thing that uses this kind of that specific era of computer graphics, the kind of like low lighting, low shaded Half-Life engine graphics with a lot of broken polygons and clipping to tell narrative, and it's gone like super huge on kind of like Zoomer social media. I feel like it's worth looking at in that context as well.
So
what was the name of that one more time?
Skibidi Toilet.
Scooby-Doo Toilet?
Skibidi Toilet. It's worth a look.
All right, we'll put that in the show notes. I heard Scooby-Doo Toilet, but
I'll put it in so you can.
Another thing about watching this is the sort of like relentless repetition, you know, where you're like, obviously they made a bot to play this. This is a bot, you know, this is, you know, I'm watching robots do robot stuff. Then there's always like weird things where you're like, wait a minute, like it would be really hard to make a robot do that. Like, has this been a person this whole time? Just like a person acting like a robot, doing like the most absurd, repetitive motion inside of this game, like unending. And that sort of like, I can't understand how this was made. It was either a person that like I can't imagine exists, or like software which would be more complicated to write than anybody would do the trouble of like making happen right now. And that kind of like breaks your brain in a way that I feel like comes up in a lot of their work and right now too. Like, is it just the most mundane performance of all time that it's like as punishing to the person doing it as anybody watching it, or something else happening?
well, now
I wondered that about their emails too. Like if they if I've gotten emails from them before, and I was like, wait, do they just copy and paste code and hide their email in it? Is there like a script running in the background that's like corrupting their emails?
Wait, what's
I
so
also was
special
thinking
about
about
their
it with this.
emails? Can you describe these emails to me?
I was actually just thinking about that. So I opened up my Gmail while we were talking, and I found one from 2010 that I have, which is a pretty good representation. I'm going to send it to you on Telegram, Mitch. I don't know if you can pull it up there. Where did my screenshots go? I preempted this topic.
While you're looking for that, the thing I wanted to say too, that I feel stronger with the last video and this one, and I wasn't thinking about in the earlier ones, is more of like this in relationship to like a games industry of like having quality control, like like having like the whole team of people that basically for 12 hours a day they deal with broken video games like this. I think about like all of a sudden it's like I see the industry in this where I didn't see the industry in the other ones. In the same way, like I guess like the ZX Spectrum, I think of like people buying like microcomputer game catalogs from the grocery store and then going home and programming their home game. Where this, like I think about like all of the 20-year-olds that work through at nighttime playing like broken Rockstar games, you know, like. Which feels very different from CERN, feels very different. Like, you know, it's like, I think they're kind of, I love how you said that it's like they're coming in and just kind of doing just enough to completely break it. And which it kind of feels like such a, I don't know, important role. It's like even outside just like as art, like to have someone who comes in and breaks things feels like really, really useful.
Were you able to find that?
Yeah,
message I sent
yeah,
you?
yeah. I just had to figure out a way to share it without also sharing my entire Telegram chat history.
Hello, it's a picture. I'm looking through other ones. Like I want to find, because like, you know, I would be coordinating coming to stay with them in Door Direct and an email, which is like almost completely indecipherable, just filled with like garbled text, but like snippets of an actual sentence in between that has like, you know, what time they're going to pick me up at the bus station or something like that. Just like every single thing that they do is garbled.
Wait, so this is an actual email that would be sent to you?
It's the full email. 2010, no context. I don't know why, when it just showed up in my email soon after I started working for them.
They're still doing it in 2019 too. Like the ones I have from them a decade later are this way too.
Or are they decodable? Like, could you understand it? Is there any translating to Unicode whatever?
No, I can't imagine. I mean, like I said, sometimes they have real information, and like, okay, I'm gonna send you another one.
Okay.
This one's from 2011, and I really don't know the context at this point. A little bit. I mean, it's one of the more lucid ones, actually.
All right, I'm going for it. File.
It's, I think,
You have any, Travis, worth sharing?
oh, I do, but the thing is that mine actually are way like, yeah. Yeah, let's see.
Okay, I'm gonna send you an actual work email from them. I think like safe enough that there's not like a login password or something.
Okay.
Actually, I got a really good one. Hold on, I gotta send you the. I'm gonna put them in the Google in the Discord.
So how long did you work for Jody, Billy?
Yeah, I worked for Jody in, I think, 2011. I moved to the Netherlands. They lived in a small town outside of Rotterdam with their lovely 2 children. Very like happy, normal life in a lot of really bizarre ways. And I lived there for, it was either 1 or 3 months working on a couple different projects with them.
Wow.
It was like my job that summer. Yeah.
So yeah, we worked for them for 3 months. That's amazing. And so between that, like, so you have that, the Corey Archangel internship, which I still think about and laugh about that story of you having to flag the translatable words from the documentary about the Miracle on Ice.
It's a great story.
It's really great. You have had the most ridiculous jobs like in all of media arts, which I think is really cool.
I mean, I just love working. Oh, you sent him?
Yeah, look at
where
Twitch
did you send me
planning.
that,
It's actually
Travis?
it's very fitting because one of my last emails was about Minecraft with them. in Twitch planning, they sent it on Discord.
Oh, no. All right, I got a work email here.
But yeah, I mean, for any young artists or whatever, I think it was a great strategy. Just like find people who are doing things that you think are really great, and then like ask them if you can come and help. And like,
Yeah.
it was so fun. You know, I worked for Oliver Lyric when I moved here to Berlin. That was why I moved to Berlin. Worked for H3D for a little while after that. Worked for a lot of people. I had a great time. Oh yeah, so this was like a real instructive email while making a website archive. Like, this is how I'm supposed to like decipher these instructions and then apply them to like web building. Upload page for big movies. Auto new tab endless, smiley face. And then just like these random links. I mean, maybe I had a little more context at the time, but like, I would say 90% of this email is completely irrelevant to whatever the instruction that I was supposed to receive.
Wow. Or maybe you just didn't fully understand the assignment.
Yeah.
And it's true, but like that's what's liberating about the artwork. You there's no obligation to think that you should ever expect to know what's going on, and so it's very liberating actually from just like lowering the bar.
It is so ahead of its time and just feeling just really lost in technology. I suppose if I had to, like, this was, I mean, this was such a fun week for me to like really engage with this software and really engage with these artworks. You know, as I said, maybe before we started, like I always knew about Jody's work. And to be honest, I learned a lot about Jody's work. I mean, the most exposure I had to them was really through the artwork releases that they did on Folia. That was the most that I got to actually interact with and engage with a piece that these artists had done. So that was really exciting for me.
I mean, that was just Joan, though, of course.
Oh, right.
They actually don't make work together anymore, so they're working on their separate projects. So yeah, actually the Folia things were always Joan, and she was really adamant that we make sure that that's pointed out.
So, but it was the closest that the most I'd been able to interact with a piece by Joan, by somebody who had been a member of Jody, which would be the correct way to put that. And thank you.
There you go.
On that. But retains some of the I think aesthetic and playful sensibilities of the previous collaborative work. Okay, so now I put the correct amount of disclaimer on it. I mean, this was just it was so it was really fun engaging with these pieces, and the extent to which I felt like, these pieces that engage with old technology, that like the easiest thing that they can do, right, is evoke a sense of nostalgia for a time when the internet was different and computers were different or whatever, and to do that through aesthetics, which, a lot of work is done, and it's, becomes a little bit of like low-hanging fruit whenever we revisit that artwork. But there was like a real sense of, as I went through this work, not at all feeling a nostalgia for the aesthetics, as like having a real sense of being lost in technology and it being fun and exciting.
Fun and exciting, really important features.
Yeah, fun and exciting, great features for an artwork to have. Does anybody, I feel like, now that we're just kind of, going through, and it's super fun, just sharing personal correspondence. Do we want to wrap this up with some closing thoughts about what we did today? It was super fun for me.
I mean, I'm just really proud of us for playing one of their games. Like, I think that's for all of the merit that their work brings and makes you willing to go through some of these like insane hoops to even access it. It has that payoff, but some of them you don't even really know that you can access them. I think a lot of these ROMs are still available online through websites, but just like Sheepshaver, all this sort of stuff, putting that in place to be able to have the experience is so huge. And I mean, like Travis said, I've seen these videos of these works played since I was in college, and like actually having it in real time does change it, and it really raises the bar. So I'm very proud of everybody here, especially you, Mitch, for getting all this stuff working and running.
Also, like for me, it's like there's a poking that happens in their work of like when you started talking about it, it felt like it was like collaging with mess or collaging with code, or just what happens when I start changing values. And it's it's exciting. It comes from I don't know. It's like the thing that I like. I find it very aspirational work, actually, in a lot of ways. Like in terms of like how interacting with technology in general, or just interacting with
It makes
systems.
me think of like the hobbyist, when it comes to like interacting with tech versus the professional. And so like
Yeah,
when I was working with Joan, on some of these Folia pieces, she would give me a JavaScript file bundled in a zip and send it over to me. I mean, like, no offense to Joan, but it was kind of a mess, and I'd have to be like, Joan, like, I am perfectly willing to accept that this code and the bizarre way that you wrote this for loop inside of this other function is actually part of the work. And like, I want you to have the, opportunity to say, Billy, that's part of the work, let's keep it. Or like, I need to get this to run on this browser. Do you mind if I refactor this code a little bit? And like that hobby thing about it, it means that you're driven purely by the passion of that work or what to do with it, rather than like, oh, I have a job and I'm just trying to find the most efficient way to do this. And so the sort of like meandering path through getting something to do what you want it to do is I think a little bit like what sounds like you're describing, Travis. And it's like that meandering path only comes from like an actual passion or desire. Whereas when you start taking it like so seriously, you professionalize it, of course you're going to like standardize it, use the other sort of like tried and true methods. But when you see something that's like truly organically weird, it usually comes from some sort of a like genuine attraction, interest that is really beautiful and organic, I think.
yeah, and kind of open for whatever the result is. Like when Kippenberger was like planning his exhibitions, he was like known to kind of go through the space chanting "courage for garbage, courage for garbage, courage for garbage, courage for garbage," and it's like, I think that, yeah, just kind of being open to whatever the result of how this poking is going to be. And I mean, I don't know, like, it's like, on one side, like the Untitled thing had 14 different versions of the game, where there are 100 other versions that weren't packaged with that, and these were kind of seen as the best outputs of it. But just kind of being, I mean, and also that's also connected to the amateur of like, and I feel the same way, like when I'm writing things like code related, I never know if it's going to work, and it often doesn't work the way I think it's going to work when I start it, and being okay with that is also really I don't know, it's good.
Courage for garbage is a beautiful phrase. No, but it ties into something that you were saying last week. Last week, Billy, about space for useless machines, right? Courage for garbage.
Yes.
These are reiterations, rephrasing of what is kind of turning into a mantra here, I think, as we just keep on looking at more and more completely impractical software and applications of software.
Yeah, I do
Courage
think
for Garbage would be a great new name for be a great name for it all.
for our band. I was going to say, I think that there is a really interesting thing. This idea of the amateur or the enthusiast technologist, right, is really interesting, because especially now, as on some level tech is getting more accessible and easier to use, and then there's the whole AI wave, right, which is kind of doing something in that. But then also the barrier to entry in some domains are getting higher and higher and higher. Things are getting more complex. If you look at something like 3D graphics, right, on one level you can kind of get in, but then if you want to be at the highest level, it's so complicated now and requires such a big team to produce, like, let's say, photorealistic kind of industry standard type work. And I think that there's a part of me, I kind of want to see the other end of that spectrum as well, right? Like, I do really appreciate the kind of punk, trash, low tech, break it approach, but I do hope that we don't just stop there, right? And that we do see people who are trying to get to a higher level of mastery of this stuff and do expressive things with it, because I think that there's a lot of value in both ends of the spectrum, but it's like, just breaking things and calling it glitch art, I think is not obviously like the final place that we want to get to.
No, so I agree with that. And it's funny. And actually, this is maybe another way of thinking about how we frame the different types of projects that we talk about here in our little space that we're creating, right? On one hand, sometimes when we're looking at, Kojima as the guy who we all agreed like made art and required a lot of mastery of a lot of different things and pushing it in this one direction, right? And then we see things like these Jody pieces, right? Or the Corey Archangel pieces, right? Who deconstruct it, force us to confront first principles of it. And those are, I think, really different and both valid tracks to take. And on regards to like, no, we don't want to just break something and call it glitch art. Yeah, that was something I was talking about, like, how the aesthetic sensibility and the experience was so important to me. There was just enough like generous here, like for all of the confusion of this software, there were just enough generous moments. There was just enough extending the slightest olive branch, giving me a menu, giving me some vaguely menu-like things, seeing that there were key bindings. And those are things that like don't just happen by themselves when you insert a random string into a binary file to break something. Those are the subtle ways that somebody who's really in control of what they're doing leaves their fingerprints and manifests a coherent form of glitch art, as well as I think in this case, a really strong sense of aesthetics. Like there is such a singular aesthetic sensibility that runs through all of these like quote unquote glitch pieces that it can't be just an accident. And these are pieces you would definitely associate with this artist. So that was really, really interesting. And that is, I think, Matt, to your point, that's the step above just breaking something, walking away and saying, oh, look, glitch art, I did it.
I think that's really important, like especially looking at SOD or SOD, right? Like that was really beautiful, right? And it still runs and it produces what feels like a coherent output, and is not just broken, right? I think and also the one where you're trapped inside a cube, right? Was, I thought, really tremendously like aesthetically successful. So I just want to kind of like speak up for some amount of like technical mastery in this conversation. Like I do think breaking things is really interesting, and I'm totally here for the kind of almost like outsider art approach to computing, right? But I also want to speak up for the idea that like as artists we should not limit our engagement with this tech to just like, look, I broke it, haha. Like we need people to be going all the way.
You know that New Media Tryhard agrees with you that Mitch thinks that we should try our absolute hardest all the time, right?
Let's go. Yeah, I'm just putting up the flag for Team Tryhard a little bit here.
Oh God, I hate me. Another thing that I thought about when I got to, like, as I was going through this, and it's a recurring theme that I think about with a lot of artwork that I enjoy is friction. And how important it is and what a powerful tool it is. And we started this conversation by talking about the challenge of getting this stuff running, understanding what the heck any of this stuff was, whether we were opening the right files, and that every step of that was thrilling and exciting. Now again, you can't just hand someone a bundle of broken software and say, yeah, look, see, my artwork is about friction. It is. Once again, you have to say, like, you have to tell people over and over and over again, my artwork is about friction, my artwork is about friction, my artwork is about friction, but not just tell them, show them. Once I finally go through the friction of figuring out what files are what, I have to go through the friction of getting it running. Once I go through the friction of getting it running, I have to go through the friction of figuring out what the buttons do. After I go through that friction, I go through these other things. But it's such an underused tool, and it becomes more and more underused all the time. It's the complete opposite of what every other piece of software is trying to do for us, where software companies are spending billions of dollars on research, all right, and product testing to make sure it's the smoothest path into the software, whatever. You can just glide right into our metaverse, glide right into our software without ever knowing what's happening. And even if you're an artist who doesn't think you're doing that, you're building your art on top of tools that are doing that for you. Okay, when I build an artwork in Unity, oh man, I'm already on the rails, and that's okay. It's not like you have to make something super busted. In most instances, I love that. I like not thinking about it, but this counterpoint to that, it's so powerful when it's done right. It is so powerful when it's done right, and it's not just when you get over the nostalgic of it. Like when you get over the part of it that's like, oh man, remember when computers, you had to go into the command line and this and that. When you get past that, no, and just engage with it as a feeling. Oh yeah, man, that's a nice feeling. And I do believe it's a feeling that software can do really well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think also games, right? This idea of difficulty in games and creating tension and frustration in the player and then relieving it, right, is a really core thing in a lot of video games, and it's something that people have a lot of different positions on, right? Like, should people be able to turn down the difficulty all the way and just blow through it, or it should be as the designer intended, whatever. And I do think that feeling of friction is probably one of the things that games play with most as an experience for the player, not to mention like we talked about Death Stranding, right? Making walking difficult was definitely like a texture of friction, right? That you're kind of putting the player through.
That tension is, the tension of drama. It is the give and the take to find the sweet spot, make it difficult but not too difficult, make it easy but not too easy. And I think that all sort of culture deals with that dramatic oscillation that is, so core to a good work, no matter where it is.
100%.
And I think that's a nice tip for us to leave it on.
Yeah, should we?
Yeah,
should
I think Billy landed the plane there.
All right, great job.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Sorry if I'm
guys.
disappointed you.
Thanks, everybody
Great
who
job,
watched us
Mitch.
try
Great
to
job
get broken
getting it all
software working. It was fun.
Well done, everyone.
I mean, big round of applause for Mitch this week. Well done. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
all online.
Thanks,
See you
y'all.
next